Hi, this is Optimus Primal, and this is Silverbolt's Transformer Review.
Evening everybody, Silverbolt here, back for another Transformers review. Going to be doing, as it is the 24th of June, there really is pretty much only one thing to review at this stage, and that is Transformers War for Cybertron. This is on the 360 version, of the Xbox 360 version, obviously. Before I continue though, I just want to thank a certain somebody. I won't mention his name, probably because he'll end up being inundated with requests. However, he did manage to ask Gary Chalk very nicely, to do an intro for me, and it was that intro which I'm assuming you just saw about a minute ago. Anyway, so thanks to him, and come AA, he will get copious amounts of beer, and, well, yeah, copious amounts of beer. Does he need any more? Anyway, War for Cybertron. Now, I have bought the 360 version, mainly because all my friends are going to be getting it. So if I want to play multiplayer with Matt and Dave and Andy and Jamie and all the others, I suppose it made sense that I got the 360 version, because I'm sure at some point we are all going to get together and have a bash it out. Unfortunately, I do warn anybody that will be playing on it now with me, I'm crap. There is a reason why I play games like World of Warcraft and Neverwinter Nights, because I can solo them. But anyway, that's not the point. Well, it's the point for me, but there we go. Anyway, so yes, Transformers War for Cybertron. Storyline, it is set on Cybertron, before the Autobots and the Decepticons come to Earth, and before the planet shuts down due to the Energon disappearing. And if once you've started playing the levels, it is blatantly obvious that this is a planet that has got no shortage of energy. I started on the con levels, and the first character I picked to play as was Megatron. As you know, big cannon, can't really go wrong. I'm currently on the second level, which is where you have control of the Starscream, Thundercracker or Skywarp. Now, the game itself is a third-person shooter. However, unlike many third-person shooters where you have a guy and you run around and kill things, similar to an MMORPG, you have classes. Soldier, Scout, Leader and Scientist. And each one can do different things. Your soldier obviously is your fighter, you know, lots of hit points, lots of firepower, things like that. Your leader is your leader and has morale boosting abilities throughout the game. The scout is your DPS choice, to put it into RPG terminology. He's your DPS choice with you know, does a high rate of damage at close range, but can't really take it very well. You know, he can cloak to get really close and shoot you in the back or smack you with a sword or things like that. And then your scientist would be your healer, buffer type character. Excuse me. And each of the different characters slot into different abilities. Warpath, for instance, is soldier. Bumblebee is Scout, Barricade is a Scout, Starscream is a Soldier, Thundercracker is a Scientist, and so on and so forth. Now, in the main campaign mode, you take the parts of various, you take on the form of various Transformer characters within the Transformer universe. Thus far, the playable characters that I have seen have been Megatron, Brawl, and Barricade, and then Starscream, Thundercracker, and Skywarp. And each one is a different class. I'm playing the Decepticon campaign first, purely because in chronological order, the Decepticons campaign comes first, and it starts off with Megatron hearing about this thing called Dark Energon, and he goes out to get it. It also reveals the storyline of why Starscream joins Megatron, and his enmity with Jetfire. Graphics-wise, it looks fantastic. Now, it uses the Unreal Engine, so anybody who's fans of games like Unreal, or even things like Gears of War, will definitely find the gameplay very much pick up and play. If you've played Unreal, well, even though you've played it on a PC, it's very much pick up and play. You'll know exactly what to do. Now, I have played Unreal on the PC. I've completed most of them, including the latest one. Unfortunately, I've never played them on a console version, and I usually don't play shooters on a console. The last one I can think of playing was Metroid on the Nintendo GameCube, and that had one great advantage in that it had a lock-on. Now then, so graphics-wise, it looks very, very pretty. It's very well done. It's not glitchy that I've noticed, at least not in the campaign mode, though. Whether it was our Xbox Live connection or whatever it was, but when Alan was playing the multiplayer, it did crash. So, there we go. Sound-wise, it's very sci-fi. It's not an awful lot to be said for it, really. There's nothing that I've really noticed that's very stirring amounts to it. But then I've just been listening to an awful lot of explosions and shooting. Speaking of sound, now there's a lot of voice actors that you will recognise almost instantly. Two of them you will recognise almost instantly. Peter Cullen reprised his role as Optimus Prime for this series, for this game, and Corey Burton is Shockwave. Other Transformers voices that are in there is Steve Blum as the voice of Barricade. Now, because I first heard Barricade's voice, and I'm like, I know that voice. Why do I know that voice? Why do I know that voice? TF Wiki, he was Darkscream in Transformers RID. Which, for anybody who knows what I was up to last week when I was in Ireland, my 4-year-old nephew Josh absolutely adored it. So, there we go. Veteran voice actor from things like Bleach, you will instantly recognisable, Johnny Young Bosch. Bish. The Black Ranger from Power Rangers way back in the day. Not the first Black Ranger, I think he was the second Black Ranger. There we go, he's the voice of Bumblebee. So, well-known voice actors that you will recognise are in there. Gameplay-wise, which of course is the main thing about any game, well, it is to me. I mean, there's reasons why Tetris is still voted one of the best games in the world. It might not be, graphically, it might not be the best. Sound-wise, it's annoying as anything. But gameplay-wise, you could sit there for hours. Gameplay-wise, it's very, very good. There have been other Transformers games in the past. The moment that mostly springs to mind is Transformers Armada, where, at least as far through as I got into it, the Transformers moved like they were underwater. They were hard to control. They were awkward. I mean, the only reason I got as far in the game as I did was because I put the cheats on it just so I could complete the game, because it just annoyed me that much. But however, Transformers War for Cybertron, the controls are much smoother. I'm saying an awful lot in this video. The controls are much smoother. Probably because I'm running this completely off the top of my head with no plan. But yes, the controls are much smoother, I'll say for the third time. And they're very easy to use. Very easy to use. Playing as Megatron, you'd expect it to be big and bulky, but no. You can jump from really, really great heights and just land, just go bosh, with a very dramatic shaking of the screen and everything, and it does look very, very good. Multiplayer-wise, again, it uses, as I said, it uses the Unreal Engine, so the maps are probably going to be fairly recognisable to most people. The designs of it are going to be fairly recognisable to most people. Power-ups that are in the game, such as, the main ones that I've come across so far have been health, weapons, and ammo. Now, health is placed fairly periodically throughout the game. However, one thing I've noticed is that ammo is not. I realised quite quickly on in the first level with Megatron that I would have to be very conservative with my ammo. There were times, though I didn't actually run out completely of ammo for my weapons, I came very close sometimes and I just had to pure resort as melee. Now, another point of the game, of course, it is a Transformers game, which means that, your characters need to be able to transform. This has been done into a single click, with very quick, very smooth transformations, so your gameplay is not interrupted. and this happens with all the characters, whether you're playing a soldier, whether you're playing a scientist or whatever. The transformations are very, very quick, they're very, very smooth. However, in the first level, I found I did not need them very much. I found that Megatron's tank, because of course the tank, it's not very wieldy. I found it slightly more of a hindrance, so I stayed mostly in robot mode. On the second level, however, I found, because one of the things that I think is absolutely brilliant is the jets get unlimited ammo. At least in the campaign mode, they get the jets, because Starscream has unlimited jet rockets and unlimited jet cannon. So I find it much more easier to stay in jet mode and just shoot everything. The flying in itself, now I have to admit there has certainly been more. Dogfighting doesn't really come into it an awful lot. So if anyone's expecting anything like a Rogue Squadron X-Wing versus TIE Fighter style of battling, you're going to be quite disappointed. Mainly because so far, where you've had to do aerial combat, you're in quite an enclosed area. I mean, you can go quite fast and you can turn quite well, but unless you're very, very good at dogfighting games, then you're pretty much stay in one place and just turn and shoot. So, I mean, I do try to dogfight quite quickly because I love strafing in X-Wings and things like that on Rogue Squadron, which I still play incidentally, but there we go. My first impression so far is that it's a good game. If I can get properly into the multiplayer mode, then I will enjoy it. For what I can tell, there is 10 missions in the campaign mode, but they are quite long. I've been playing it pretty much since I came home for probably about 2.5 hours, and I only got through the first campaign and the probably about halfway through the second level. The Transformers themselves. Now, there's been quite a lot of arguing amongst various members of the fandom regarding the transformation of the Transformers themselves. Oh, sorry, their aesthetic look. And of course, it's the typical, people crying out. It's the typical G1 response. Oh, it's not the 80s cartoon. We don't want to know. Shut up! The 80s cartoon was 20 years ago. I could live in Reflex, and I'm saying the 80s was 20 years ago. Shut up and move on! But yes, they do look very nice. They're obviously, they seem to be a cross between the movieverse Transformers and the G1 styling, and they do lean towards the G1 styling. I mean, Optimus Prime is very recognisable as Prime. Megatron, to me, reminds me more of his animated look than he does his G1 format, and the Autobots tend to be the ones that are very much more reminiscent of their G1 80s counterparts. Prime is very recognisable, Bumblebee is very recognisable, Silverbolt is very recognisable, Jetfire is very recognisable, Warpath is very recognisable. So, you'll know who's who. Soundwave is very recognisable, Starscream is very recognisable, so you'll know who's who with them. Now, I'm trying to think, I know there's something else I wish to add.
The 80s were 30 years ago?
Hmm?
The 80s were 30 years ago?
The 80s were 30 years ago. No, they weren't.
2010!
Oh yeah, 2010. The 80s were 30 years ago. Philly's just nicely reminded me that I'm nearly 30. Don't I have a wonderful, loving girlfriend?
I love you.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do.
No, you don't.
Meaning?
You just reminded me that I'm nearly 30.
You were shouting to a screen that it was 20 years ago and it was 30.
I'd rather have been 20 years ago, because then I wouldn't be nearly 30!
Okay, it's 20 years ago.
There we go. Yeah, okay, she is right, it is 30 years ago. But there we go. 80s was still the coolest period going. But there we go. Anyway, I can't think of anything else to say on this game at this particular moment in time. So I'm going to sign off here, and I'm going to go back and play the campaign mode a little while. So, but for now then, this is Silverbolt with Transformers War for Cybertron on the Xbox 360, signing off, saying au revoir, adios, auf Wiedersehen.